Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Let me know if the sound is working alright. So we've actually had a change of plans. We're going to be going through another past paper, which as you can see is the November 2019 paper 2, higher tier obviously for Edexcel. So just let me know when you're ready to go through it. Obviously make sure you have your calculators with you, the ones that you're going to use in the exam, not just your phone calculator. And then we'll get started. Yeah, we were going to do the predicted one, but then a lot of people commented on, because I did a video on it anyway, that they wanted to do a past paper instead, so we swapped it, that's why. There is a video on the predicted one anyway, though, so you can watch the actual video itself if you want as well. Alright, let's get into it then. So question 1, the table shows some information about the weights of 50 potatoes, so you can see obviously frequency table. Evita drew this frequency polygon for the information in the table. The frequency polygon is not fully correct. Write down 2 things that are wrong with the frequency polygon. So the only reason why I don't want to have one tomorrow is because I have obviously like my tutoring students tomorrow evening. Otherwise I would have done one, but obviously they've asked for one-on-one sessions the day before the exam. So that's why I don't have one booked for tomorrow. So one thing wrong with the frequency polygon, which I think is confusing because they call it a polygon, right, is the fact that you're not supposed to join it up. So this kind of bottom line here, you're not supposed to join it up. Which you'd think you would because it's meant to be a polygon, but you're not supposed to on these graphs. And then the other problem, so the other problem I think I would say is there's nothing to, well, I guess there's a few problems here by the looks of it actually. Yeah, there's more than 2 problems. That's one of them. The other thing I was thinking is they haven't labeled the y-axis. I guess the other one is maybe that they've started from 10. Oh, my pen is massive. They've started from 10, so the scale here doesn't make sense. You can always check that all the numbers are correct if you want to as well. This one is meant to be at 6, isn't it? That looks like it's at 8, so that's also a problem there. 21's fine. That looks about 13. Yeah, 7, 3. The rest of them are fine. So there's a few different problems basically. So you can say any of those. I think, yeah, they've put 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 different options on the mark scheme. So any of those, you shouldn't join it up. This coordinate in itself is wrong. They haven't labeled the y-axis, anything like that. Question 2, the length of a pencil is 128 millimeters, correct to the nearest millimeter. Complete the error interval for the length of the pencil. So when it's rounded, this is effectively rounded, isn't it? Correct to the nearest millimeter. They've rounded it to the nearest millimeter. Then it's the same as upper and lower bounds. So it's just a little bit less, a little bit more. Obviously nearest millimeter, so you want half a millimeter less. So 127.5 would be half a millimeter less, and then obviously half a millimeter more as well, so 128.5. So it's just literally upper and lower bounds, that one. Yeah, error interval is pretty nice. Question 3, Tom and Adam have a total of 240 stamps. The ratio of the number of Tom stamps to the number of Adam's stamps is 3 to 7. I just like to write their initials. Tom to Adam. Tom buys some stamps from Adam. The ratio of the number of Tom stamps to the number of Adam stamps is now 3 to 5. How many stamps does Tom buy from Adam? So the total amount of stamps is still 240 in each scenario, isn't it? So that hasn't changed. So I'd basically say just share out both ratios and then find the difference. So let's do that. We want to add these up, don't we? That's 10. So for the first scenario, before they start buying stamps off each other, divide it by 10. So we could find out how many Tom has. You times it by 3, which is basically just 24 times 3, isn't it? So Tom originally had 72 stamps. Now, Tom buys some stamps from Adam. I guess you wouldn't even need to really work out Adam's ones, would you? You could, but I guess you wouldn't have to. So this is Tom before, and then we know it's 240 still because they're swapping stamps between themselves. If I divide it again for the second ratio, which is now by 8, times it by 3 for Tom still, that gives me 90. So Tom had 72, and now he has 90. So how many did he buy from Adam was just the difference of that, isn't it? 18. You could obviously work out Adam's and compare those as well if you wanted. It'd be the same amount of stamps, wouldn't it? Yeah, 18 exactly. So yeah, you can work out Tom or Adam. It doesn't really matter as long as you get 18 at the end. You don't have to work out both. So that was 4 marks. 18. Yeah, I mean, you can do both ratios, that's fine. It's just more that I kind of realised that I didn't necessarily need to. But either way, you should find that Tom's increases by 18 and therefore Adam's decreases by 18. Okay, so let's see. Probably 3 marks out of 4. Because the last bit is just a subtract. They won't really give you a mark for literally subtracting it. They'll just give you the mark for the answer. So I would say 3 marks, just from looking at the mark scheme. They've kind of given 3 marks for working around the different ratios and then 1 mark for your answer. So yeah, 3 out of 4, I think that's still fine. Yeah, 4 marks is nice for that question, I think. Okay, question 4. Each person in a fitness club is going to get a free gift. Stan is going to order the gifts. So Stan takes a sample of 50 people in the fitness club. He asks each person to tell him the gift they would like, and you can see the table shows the information about his results. So it's either a sports bag, gym towel, headphones, voucher, and you've got obviously the number of people that would add up to 50. There are 700 people in the fitness club. Work out how many sports bags Stan should order. Sports bags. So it's just basically a sample, isn't it? A population sample. So 17 people out of 50 chose a sports bag. So we're just going to use that as our kind of estimate for like almost like a percentage or a proportion of all of them. So times that then by 700. So you're applying that kind of percentage or that proportion to the 700 basically, to everyone. And you get 238. So it's literally just that, apply the sample. Then we've got part II. Write down any assumption you made and explain how this could affect your answer. So our assumption was that the sample, this 17 out of 50, represents the whole population. So the sample is representative, is how you can say that. So the sample is representative. How this would affect our answer, well, if let's say if the assumption was wrong, let's say it wasn't representative of the 700 people, then it would just mean that our answer was just wrong, wouldn't it? I guess it would just mean that we would have a different number, a different amount of people would want sports bags. Yeah, the sample was constant among all. I think that means the same thing, doesn't it? That's what you're trying to say, is that the sample is constant, like a constant or like a consistent version of what you would apply to everyone. So yeah, that sounds like the same thing, doesn't it? Let me show you what else they've said, because there's a few options, as you can see. So I just chose the first one because that's the one that I would have thought of as sample is representative. Otherwise, the answer is wrong. You could say that your assumption was that there was a random sample, because that's another, like a different assumption you could make. Otherwise, the answer will be different. The 50 people are from the 700. That's true. I guess we did assume that, didn't we? Otherwise, it won't be accurate, because if you just took a random other 50 people, then it could be a completely different answer, couldn't it? 17 out of every 50 people want a sports bag, which is, yeah, the representative thing, and just in different words. So something along the lines of that. Could I say this reason for every question like that? Yeah, whenever you have a sample question, when you've applied a sample, they often say write down the assumption you made. I normally stick with the sample as representative. But yeah, I haven't often seen them say explain how this would affect your answer. But yeah, I think it's just because it's only 1 mark, they want you to write something with the worded ones. It's like the most basic thing you can think of. So I think saying like that therefore the answer could be wrong, it sounds kind of weird to say that, but that is just the basic they want, if that makes sense, something really obvious. So yeah, I think you could almost copy and paste that answer if it's in this context, right? If it's a sample question, you could copy and paste that answer effectively. Yeah. Question 5, we've got here are 6 graphs. Write down the letter of the graph that could have the equation y equals x cubed, first of all. So cubic graph. So we want to be able to recognize all of these graphs, basically. The first one is a quadratic, x squared. The second one, that could be a cubic graph, it could be, because they said could. This one is a reciprocal graph. I think it's like a negative reciprocal, but I'll just write it as reciprocal. This one is then the other version of the reciprocal. This is obviously a straight line, linear, and this one, and this one also, I would say, could be a cubic one. The way. So I think I would say, now we're narrowing it down for the cubic ones. This one here is a bit more exaggerated, isn't it? It's a bit more exaggerated than this one. So this one is a cubic graph, but it's when you've got, when you have the whole cubic, like, I don't know, 2x cubed plus 3x squared plus x, or, when it's got the whole thing, that's like a transformed version. This one is the most basic version of a cubic graph. Do you see why they've just given you x cubed? So I would choose F. So they are both cubic ones, but this is more of a transformed version. And then this one being reciprocal, as I said, we've got 2 reciprocals, but one's the negative version. They've obviously here given us the positive one, which is this one here. So you want F and D. Yeah, if you can't remember, you could always test it out. You could test out a few coordinates, for example. You could always take a couple of the x coordinates, so just like -5, -3, -1, whatever, 2, 3, 4, and sub them in and see what would happen if you wanted to. Obviously, it's easier if you memorize them. But yeah, if you wanted to, you could test it out with your calculator, sub in a few values for x and see what coordinates for y it would give you, and then draw yourself a little sketch. Obviously, that might take you then longer than it's worth for 1 or 2 marks. But you could technically do that, yeah. So yeah, F and D more specifically. Question 6, the nth term of a sequence is 2n squared minus 1. The nth term of a different sequence is 40 minus n squared. Show that there is only one number that is in both of these sequences. So one number that's in both of these sequences. I was thinking to do it a different way than the mark scheme has said, to be fair. There's only one number that's in both of these sequences. I was thinking to like make them equal, but it doesn't say that in the mark scheme. Now I'm just looking. It says like that. I guess they're saying trial and error. For a method to find at least 2 terms, for generating at least 3 correct terms of a sequence. Yeah, they're actually recommending trial and error in this one, which they don't often do they? So but yeah, I guess let's do that then. So n is the term number, isn't it? So if we sub in 1, and we just keep going until they overlap, I guess. So that would be -1. Just +1, that one, isn't it? 1. Then you've got 2 times 2 squared -1, which is 7. 2 times 3 squared. Seems a bit pointless, but apparently this is what you're supposed to do. 17. 2 times 4 squared. That's 131. I don't know, let's do one more. 49. And then the other one, 40 minus 1 squared, 39. Well, I guess that one's a little bit easier, isn't it? 40 minus 2 squared, 36. 40 minus 3 squared, and then you can see you get 31. I was thinking, yeah, I dislike trial and error as well. I was thinking to make them equal, but it hasn't even given that as an option in the mark scheme, which is why I'm like, oh, that's odd. Maybe because it's only question 6. Obviously, because we changed the paper last minute, I haven't had time to go through it myself. Normally, I would obviously go through it before, but we could see if it would work, because that's what I would naturally think to do. You barely ever need to use trial and error, is it? That's what I would do, because obviously, technically, they both equal 31, isn't it? Work out n. So we could add n squared, so that's 3n squared equals... Yeah, I guess that wouldn't work, right? Because you're not going to get a whole number there, are you? Or are you? Does 41 doesn't divide by 3, does it? No. Square root it. No, yeah, you don't get a whole number for n, so I guess maybe not. I just thought that would have worked, but yeah. I guess if you tried that, you'd found out that n does not become a whole number, and then you'd go, oh, okay. Yeah, if you do that and get decimals, then you can go, oh, wait, that doesn't work, and then my only other option is trial and error, I guess. Because I would have thought to do this first. That's what I was thinking as well. But it doesn't... Oh, I guess it doesn't work because n is not the same number, right? For this one, n is 3 and this one, n is 4. Yeah, I guess that's why that doesn't work. If we think about it. We're solving for where they both have the same answer, but the n is different, isn't it? What did I get for n? I got 3.69. Well, I guess it could give you a clue somewhere between 3 and 4. Yeah, I think what I would have done, because I, just immediately looking at it, I probably would have tried to solve it like that, realised that it didn't work, because you should get a whole number, and go, oh wait, I haven't got a whole number, probably crossed it out, and then I would have tried trial and error, because, apart from just making them equal, what other option is there? It's just trial and error, isn't it? So I think that's probably what would have been my process. But yeah, I definitely thought we could have done it algebraically, but actually, yeah, because the n's aren't the same number, are they? This is n, for the first one, it's n is 4, and for the second one, it's n is 3 to get the same value, so that's why we didn't get a solution. Edexcel, this one is. So yeah, that's, I guess, why they've given us trial and error. It's very rarely trial and error, but I wouldn't completely ignore it. I'll go, yeah, let me try out my other options. If those don't work, then yeah, I might as well fall back on trial and error. Especially this soon into the paper, I guess, as well. Okay, question 7, we've got work out 3.42 times 10 to the minus 7 divided by 7.5 times 10 to the minus 6. So obviously I'm going to just put all of that in the calculator, see what happens. (7.5), not 75, times 10 to the minus 6. And it says give your answer in standard form. So my calculator gave it to me as a decimal. So I guess that's your kind of 1 mark for your working out, isn't it? 0.0456. And then you obviously want to convert it back. So we would put the decimal place between the 4 and the 5, wouldn't we? 1, 2. So 4.56 would be our kind of starting number, and then times 10 to the minus 2 because the original number was smaller, wasn't it? So it needs to get smaller again. So yeah, make sure that I was going to say, make sure you write something here for your, middle mark, but they have accepted 4.56 to the power of 10 something as a middle mark, and then to the power of minus 2 exactly as your final mark. But yeah, I normally write something in the middle, even though I've typed it into calculator. That one was quite nice. Question 8, the number of days, D, that will take to build a house is given by D is equal to 720 divided by N, where N is the number of workers used each day. Ali's company will take 40 days to build the house. Haley's company will take 30 days to build the house. Haley's company will have to use more workers each day than Ali's company. We just need to work out how many more. Just a case of subbing them in, but remember that the 40 is the days, not the N. I think it's quite easy to try and sub it in as N, but it's not, it's the number of days. So for Ali, we've got 40 is equal to 720 over N, and then you'd have to solve that. Yeah, I think the first 5 to maybe 8 questions on this paper are the final 5 to 8 or 9 maybe questions on the foundation. So technically, yes. You obviously have to be able to rearrange it though, so technically you would multiply by N, because a lot of people rearrange this wrong, and then divide by the 40. So the N and the 40 basically swap is what we're saying. So obviously that's what I'd put in my calculator. 720 divided by 40 is 18. So Ali had 18 workers. Do the same for Haley. You can see how we've rearranged it now, so you don't necessarily need to write it out fully. N would be 720 over 30, wouldn't it? 24. So they've said how many more, obviously, then, yeah, you subtract, and yeah, you get 6 exactly. 6. So yeah, as long as you can sub them in correctly and then rearrange it correctly, it's fairly straightforward. It's more just like one of those questions you might trip up on or make a slight mistake if you kind of naturally want to sub it in for N when it's not N, or if you rearrange it wrong, but technically it's, quite a nice question. Question 9, the diagram shows a cube and a cuboid. The total surface area of the cube is equal to the total surface area of the cuboid. This is one where I read this sentence, I know we mentioned it the other day, I would read a sentence like this, and in my head I'm thinking I can set up an equation, as they've said is equal. I know you said the other day that, how would you know when to set up an equation? It's just sentences like this, when they give you a relationship between two things, and I know the formula for each surface area, right? I can just set up an equation. So that's what I'm thinking there. And then Janet says the volume of the cube is equal to the volume of the cuboid. Is Janet correct? So we don't know anything about the cube currently, so what I would do, obviously we know that a cube has all the same sides, but we don't know what they are, so I would label them X, for example. Set up this formula, so the surface area of a cube would be X squared to get one of the squares. Yeah, exactly, you could do that, 6A squared, because there are then 6 of those faces, aren't there? I've used X, you can use A, you can use whatever letter you want, it doesn't matter. So that's that side. On the right-hand side, we can actually work out the surface area of the cuboid, can't we? So remember to find all the areas and add them together. So you've got 6 times 8 for the front face, but the back one is also the same, so there's 2 of those. Plus, then you've got 6 times 18 for the for the side, 6 times 18 for the side, but then both sides are 6 times 18. And finally, 6 times, nope, the other one, 8 times 18, there we go, that's the base and the top, isn't it? So you can see I've got 6 here, 2 of each. So there's also 6 sides of a cuboid. So 6x squared, obviously this side you would just type it in and work it all out. I did earlier anyway, so I'll tell you what that is. That gives you 600 when you add all that up. And then you've got a really nice equation to work out x, so you can work out the actual side length of your cube, which we then need to work out the volume afterwards. So obviously divide by 6 first, 100, square root 10. I know it's technically plus or minus 10, but obviously in the context of a cube, it's not going to be minus 10, is it? So that's why I've only just written 10. So our cube is 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters. So that's the first bit. Then I would go on to the volume and say, right, is Janet correct? Is the volume of the cube equal to the volume of the cuboid? Well, let me work out both. The volume of the cube is just, well, they're both the same formula, aren't they? Base times height times length, whatever you want to call it. 3 dimensions multiplied together, which for a cube is all the same. So that one should be 1,000 centimeters cubed. The volume of the cuboid is the 3 dimensions multiplied, but obviously that's 6, 8, and 18, which should give you 864. And then you can say, well, yeah, no, Janet is not right because they are not equal, are they? They're not the same. Yeah, she's wrong, exactly. So you would say no, or you say she's wrong, just make it obvious, like yes or no. And that was 5 marks, which I think is fairly nice. Question 10, we've got make k the subject of the formula y equals the square root of 2m minus k. So I'm going to square everything, because we need to kind of unlock that. You can write it like that. You can just show, let me go back. I just wrote that. You can write not equal, you know, when you do the equals and then cross through it, is that. You can write that that one is greater, which is obviously also implies that it's not equal. You don't even need to write any. As long as you've got both figures and then you say no, or she's wrong, or something like that, then that's fine, yeah. That's okay. Yeah, so I would square everything because I want to kind of unlock or like open up the square root. So I need to square both sides, so that's y squared. Obviously this side just opens up. We want to make k the subject. K is currently negative, isn't it? It's minus. So what I would personally do is move the k, add it, because to move it you have to add it, which makes it positive, and then I would take away the y squared. That's what I would do. You might rearrange it differently. As long as we get to the same thing at the end, then that's okay, but you have to make sure that the k is definitely positive to make it the subject. I know some people would just move the 2m and then maybe times or divide by a negative number. That's also okay. I prefer not to. That's just my personal preference. So I like to move anything negative to make it positive by adding it. So yeah, as long as you end up with this at the end, it doesn't matter if you've got these the other way around. Like if you wrote it like this, that's also fine. Same thing. Just obviously make sure that you've got the negative with the y squared and the positive with the 2m. Question 11, box plots. I know you haven't had box plots, so that could be something that could come up, couldn't it? So we've got Megan grows potatoes. The box plot below shows information about the weights of Megan's potatoes. So in grams, Megan says that half of her potatoes weigh less than 50 grams each. Is Megan correct? So 50 grams is here. Do you think that she's correct? Well, half of the potatoes is talking about the median, isn't it? The middle number, half. The median is this one, and that is about 57. So is Megan correct? No. And you say literally that because the median is 57, which is obviously, it kind of implied that that's not the same as 50, is it? That's bigger than 50. No, because the median is 50 grams. Part B, Amy also grows potatoes. The box plot below shows information about the weights of Amy's potatoes. Compare the distribution of the weights of Megan's potatoes with the distribution of the weights of Amy's potatoes. This one's really nice because it's always the same two things. So you're always going to compare the medians, and then you're always going to compare technically either the interquartile range or the whole range. I like to do the interquartile range, but some kind of range as long as you do that. Yes, exactly, those two things. As long as you compare those two things, and it's a literal comparison, just say one is bigger than the other, or one is smaller than the other. It's not, there's no kind of explanation. So we said that the median of Megan, I know you can't see it, but on your actual exam you'll be able to see it at the same time, was 57 grams, wasn't it? That was her median. The median here, Amy, is 42. So you say the median, you have to relate at least one of them to the context, right? So I'd say the median weight of Megan's potato, so you see how I'm relating it to the context, is greater or bigger or higher or whatever. If you want to put it the other way around, you can put it the other way around, than the median weight what was it, of Amy's potatoes. That's 1 mark. Now, you don't technically have to put the numbers, but if you do put the numbers, you have to make sure they're correct. So if you write the numbers but get them wrong, then they'll mark you down. If you just don't write the numbers but obviously you get the comparison correct, then it's okay. You said Megan has a higher mean. Oh, well, the thing is the mean is not the same as the median, right? So you'd have to say median. Then Amy's. But if you said median, then that's fine for mark 1. Megan has the highest weight. No, yeah, you have to do the median, which is like an exact point, and then the range or the interquartile range, which is like a spread. Yeah. Yeah, as long as you write median, that's fine. You get 1 mark. You can say the range and the median or the interquartile range and the median. That's fine. Whichever of those two, as long as you do some, obviously the median, and then some form of range, some kind of spread, if that makes sense. Do we include the calculation in the question? Why can't you do the highest value? Because the thing is, the highest value could be an outlier. That doesn't tell you anything about the rest of the potatoes, does it? But it doesn't tell you about the distribution, if that makes sense. It could be just a random outlier. So it doesn't really tell you anything about the distribution. That's the reason. So yeah, as I said, number 2, I would choose interquartile range. You can talk about the range generally if you want. So let's go back. Megan's interquartile range is not that complicated to figure out. What's that? 65 and 39? And it's a calculator one anyway, isn't it? So 65 minus 39. So Megan's is 26. You could also kind of look at it, because the thing is, normally the scale for both box plots will be the same. So you could just kind of have a little look and say, just, you can clearly see that Megan's is much bigger if you didn't want to work it out, but I would recommend just double checking. But normally the scale is the same. Here we've got 35 and 51, which is 16. So you can see hers is a lot less. So the interquartile range of weights, and as I said, just make sure you relate it to the context of of Megan's potatoes. Is again greater or wider or more or whatever you want to call it. Interquartile range of weights of Amy's potatoes. So yeah, as long as you mention those 2 things, mention obviously the context and say which is bigger, which is less, that's fine. Okay. If I was doing the calculation, I'd probably just write it over here somewhere. Yeah, or you could do it in your head if you want. You don't have to write it down in your answer, if that makes sense. They're not looking for that for your answer. They're just looking for you to be correct in terms of if it's a bigger interquartile range or not. Yeah, I feel like this could come up, definitely. You've not seen it yet, so definitely could be a chance. And cumulative frequency also hasn't come up yet either. Sometimes the 2 of those go together, sometimes separately, sometimes just one of them. Just depends, doesn't it? So question 12. Something like this could come up, because I don't think you've had this yet either. We've got the diagram shows triangle ABC. ADC and DEB are straight lines. ADC and D... Oh yeah, well, you can kind of see that, can't you? AD is 4.4, BC is 8.6. They've already labelled all of this. And then E is the midpoint of DB, right? We can't assume that. We can see it because they've told us. I know it looks like it. If they didn't tell you that it's the midpoint, then I would never kind of make that assumption. They've obviously then given us some angles, 40 degrees, 90 degrees. Work out the size of angle EAD. We want this one here. So what I'm thinking is, obviously, I need to start over here. Yeah, it's trigonometry, isn't it? Exactly. DB. I could work out the whole of that side. Just looking at this right-hand triangle, work at the whole side of DB. So we want the opposite. We've got the hypotenuse. So that's sin, isn't it? And we're working for the opposite, so that means to find BD, I need sin 40. Oh, where did my n go? Sin 40 times 8.6. Which is obviously loads of decimals. 5.527. I might just write down a couple of them, but keep that in your calculator. Now, that's the whole of BD. We are looking at this smaller triangle now, so ideally I want to know ED, don't I? Not BD, which is exactly half. So take my answer again, just divide it by 2. So I get 2.76-ish. Obviously, I'm still going to use the whole answer from my calculator, but just write down a couple of decimals. And then here we can now look at that triangle. We've got the opposite, we've got the adjacent, we want to know the angle. So that's now tan, isn't it? Tan inverse of the opposite, 2.6, which I will use, as I said, the answer from my calculator, over the adjacent, 4.4. So my answer here, tan inverse, because obviously we're working out an angle. We always do the inverse when we want an angle. Answer over 4.4, just because I want all of my decimals. And you can see 32.1, as you said, to 3 significant figures, 32.1. Yeah, half it to find ED. It's not Pythagoras, it's still trig again because we want an angle. Pythagoras is where we only look at sides, but yeah, you're effectively right. You want to find ED and then carry on from there. So 32.1. And that's 4 marks, which I think is quite nice. I don't think you've had trig yet, have you? At least not, yeah, I don't think you've had SOHCAHTOA yet, so I would imagine they're going to test it at some point. Question 13, Shakira, oh no, not Shakira, Sakira invested £3,550 in a savings account for 3 years. She was paid 2.6% per annum compound interest for each of the first 2 years. She was paid R% interest for the 3rd year. Sakira had £3,819.21 in her savings account at the end of the 3 years. Work out the value of R, so obviously compound interest. What I would do is, yeah, just set up the compound interest formula. So your initial amount or your principal amount multiplied by, we can do at least the 2 years first, can't we? 1 plus 2.6 over 100, or however you do the formula, squared for the 2 years, right? Because we've only got that for 2 years. So we might as well work that out. Which is technically the same as 1.026, isn't it? Squared, we get 3,736. 6.999. I'm just writing all the decimals because there weren't that many. Obviously, then you would have taken this number, this amount, and they would have multiplied that by the 1 plus the R% over 100, technically to the power of 1, because it's 1 year, isn't it, for 3 years. And then we know that that equals the 3,819. So I can set up an equation and just solve it. Oh, trial and error. Well, that, I don't know if you would have got an answer if you did trial and error for that. That would have taken you so long, and I don't think you... I would never use trial and error for this, yeah. Yeah, exactly. I'm going to start dividing. Yeah, I wouldn't use... Let me see if it says anything in marking. I wouldn't use trial and error because I just think the chances... It is going to be a decimal because it says give your answer correct to 1 decimal place. Like, I don't know how you'd even manage to guess the correct answer. It hasn't said anything about trial and error in the mark scheme, but I wouldn't have used it anyway. But there is a formula on your formula sheet. That's where I got this from. So I'm just think if you ever get compound interest, just think there is a formula that I can use for this, and it's on your formula sheet. On the bottom left, I think. So yeah, this I'm then going to rearrange. So obviously I'm going to divide across. This is just an equation now, isn't it? So there's my answer still. So 3,819.21 divided by the 3,700 number. So then I've got 1 plus r over 100 is equal to this. Now, I'd probably just round this to 1.022 at this point, because there's just loads of 9s, isn't it? So 1 plus r over 100 is equal to 1.022. Almost from here, you could probably see what it's going to be. But if not, obviously take away 1 from both sides, 0.022, and then times by 100, 2.2% is the answer. Yep, you can use decimal multipliers. I normally do that. The reason why I don't write it for you guys is because I just don't know who would look at it and go, where's that come from, and who would understand, because a lot of people would just use the formula, if that makes sense. So I'm just copying the formula sheet, but obviously if I were to do it myself, I would just put straight away into a decimal multiplier. But some people don't necessarily understand the decimal multipliers, if that makes sense. So that's the only reason. You can write it down however you want. If you want to write it as this, that's fine. I think for this one you kind of have to write it separately because you don't know what R is, but yeah, I typed that into the calculator like that. That's fine. You can use the decimal multipliers or the formula version. Doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't say reject it. It doesn't also give an option for it, but I mean, you did trial and error and you got 2.2. Well, must have been a really good trial and error then, fair. I don't know how you would have just guessed. Yeah, the fractions are annoying to type into the calculator, I know. Yeah, I would just use the decimal multiplier myself, but that's, up to you. Yeah, the mark scheme says you need to get some kind of answer for working out maybe 1 year. For compound interest calculation is for the second mark, and then for your answer. Yeah, if answer is in the correct range, seen in working, then incorrectly rounded reward 4 marks. Yeah, they don't really mind if you round it wrong, which makes no sense, but anyway. Yeah, I don't know what to say. That's what I'm trying to, yeah, how did you guess that? No, yeah, I realised you probably just started multiplying by random decimals, but it's just luckily that you picked the right one, I guess. I mean, it's probably going to be something less than 4%, but even then, that's still quite a lot of numbers, isn't it? Yeah. To test out. Okay, question 14. So, Sadia's going to buy a new car. For the car, she can choose one body colour, one roof colour, and one wheel type. She can choose from 19 different body colours, 25 different wheel types. The total number of ways Sadia can choose the body colour and the roof colour and the wheel type is 3,325. Work out the number of different roofs or different roof colours that Sadia can choose from. So just product rule for counting, exactly, just multiply them. 19 times by 25, and then you would have times it by the roof colours, so maybe call that X if you want. That's how I would lay it out. Then I can see, obviously, I just need to divide by the 19 and the 25. 3,325 divided by 19 times 25 is what I did. And you get, obviously you should get a whole number, you get 7. So there are 7 different roof colours. Yes, exactly. Yeah, you multiply them all together, but obviously we don't know what one of them was, so it's kind of that, but the reverse of it, yeah. That's fine. Question 15, expanding triple brackets. This one comes up quite a lot in either paper 2 or paper 3, so quite a nice one, I think. So I normally just take the first 2 and expand them. You could technically expand them in whichever order you like, but I just follow the order that they're given me. So that would be 6x squared. Just be careful when they've got obviously coefficients in front of x as well. Plus 3x plus 4x plus 2. And then I would simplify this before I bring back the third one. So 6x squared plus 7x plus 2. And then I'm going to multiply it by x minus 5. Yeah, exactly. You should get a cubic at the end. Yeah, you should get 4 terms unless some of them cancel, but normally it's 4 terms with a cubic. Obviously, x cubed will be the biggest one. So I'll get some colours. This is how I expand this one. 6x cubed, as you can see, there's your cubic. Then I take the 6x squared again, do it by minus 5, minus 30x squared. Then I do 7x and x, so 7x squared. 7 by the minus 5. Again, be careful just because it is a negative 5 there. If you've got any negatives, be careful of that. Minus 35x, and then if I get a different colour, then I'll come to the 2. 2x, and finally, minus 10. The only reason why I do it in that order, some people do it differently than that, is because then my like terms match up. But you don't have to do it that way. Oh yes, I've seen your question. I feel like I haven't checked because I've been sick the last few days. That's why I haven't got back to you. I feel like I've been through it in one of my vectors videos. It might be in one of my vectors videos. I'll have to check for you, but I think I have done it. It looked familiar when I briefly saw it, but yeah, I need to get back to you on that. So now also we can just add these. So 6x cubed minus 23x squared minus 33x minus 10. You can see you've got 4 terms at the end. Okay, so that's 3 marks. That's, I think, quite a nice one, isn't it, that one? Question 16. We've got, let me have a look on my piece of paper. Marek has 9 cards. There is a number on each card. Marek takes at random 2 of the cards. He works out the product of the numbers on the 2 cards. Work out the probability that the product is an even number. Yeah, I know you had probability in the first paper, but I feel like it's still going to come up at some point, isn't it? Like, they can still ask a lot of different types of questions. So definitely look out for more probability, I would say. The way that I did this one was, obviously I'm not going to start doing I would do a probability tree because it's 2 cards, but I wouldn't start doing like 9 different branches, right? Because that would be insane. So what I'm actually going to do is split it into even and odd. So the chance of picking an even card and the chance of picking an odd card. Yeah, I think some people do it with a grid. I just tend to like to do yeah, the one you had was much harder, I think, but like similar but harder because obviously it wasn't only question 6. Well, I guess it was probably close to question 16 because you only had 17 questions, but it was like what I would class as a question 20, maybe it was at the end, wasn't it? Yeah, now the only thing is though they've said product, which is multiply, so just be aware of that. So even cards, we've got 4 out of 9 initially. Obviously then odd is 5 out of 9. But because they're saying that he takes 2 cards at random, I don't think he replaces it. So then there's even would be then 3 out of 8. Odd, 5 out of 8 still. So just be aware of that. I think it is that they don't replace the card. So even here, 4 out of 8 and 4 out of 8 for odd. So then I just thought, well, how do I make an even answer when I multiply 2 numbers? I could obviously do even times even. That would give me even. Even times odd would give me even. And odd times even. So you could do that. Yeah. So what you can do, as you can see, I've highlighted 3 out of the 4 options. So you can obviously work out all of those options individually, that's fine. If you are confident enough to kind of go an easier route, what you can do if you want is just work out the option that it isn't, which is obviously odd times odd, and subtract that from 1 if you want to be a bit faster. That's up to you. I'll just kind of show you the whole thing. So, oh, that's my highlighter. I would have done 4/9 times, when we're working with the probability tree, we always multiply between the branches, don't we? And then when you've got more than one option, which I'm doing 3 options here, you add them. 4/9 times 5/8. So this is kind of the long way, which is also still fine. Either way, you should get the same answer. So I think when I put this in my calculator, you get 13 out of 18. As I said, you could do 1 minus. You could do 1 minus the odds, which is 5/9 times 4/8. That would give you the same answer. So some version of 13 out of 18, obviously, or an equivalent of that. You could have got 52 out of 72, I guess, if you'd worked it out in your head. If you'd worked it out in your head, you could have done that, but obviously it's a calculator question, so I don't see why you wouldn't just put it in the calculator. I probably wouldn't put a decimal because I think it was a recurring decimal. They have said that they'll accept recurring decimals or percentages, but I just wouldn't because it's recurring. I don't really want to round it. So yeah, I would just leave it as a fraction personally. So yeah, you've got 2 options there. Question 17. Obviously now we've got some circle theorems, which you've also not seen, so this, you know, has a good chance of coming up now or in the next paper. So A and B are points on a circle with centre O. CAD is the tangent to the circle at A, as you can see. BOD is a straight line, so it's kind of like the diameter and then carries on. That's obviously not a tangent, right? BOD, it's not a tangent, it's just a straight line. Then they've obviously given us this angle 32. Work out the size of angle CAB. They haven't said to give any reasons, so just double check if they do. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So what I was thinking was, here we've got a triangle. We obviously have to start with the 32, don't we? This is 90 because tangent radius, right? 90. So then I could work out this angle in my triangle, couldn't I? What's that? AOD is obviously 180 minus 32, which gives me, oh no, and the 90. Don't forget the 90, which gives me 58. That's 58. And then because that's a straight line, I could then go into the next triangle, isn't it? Yeah, this is not a bad one, to be fair. This one's pretty good. So BOA is then kind of the opposite of that, isn't it? 180 minus the 58 again, which is 122. And then just look at this triangle. This is an isosceles because that's a radius and that's a radius. OA, OB, they're both a radius. Yeah, it's isosceles, exactly. So then I could split my angle to find out, obviously this one more ideally. So what's that? OAB, and technically also OBA, I guess, if you want to write it like that, are both 180 minus 122 over 2, which is basically half of the 58, isn't it? So 29. And then the last thing, so if that's 29, also on this side is 90 degrees, isn't it? The other side of the tangent radius. So I just did for CAB was 90 minus 29, which is 61. So yeah, quite a nice one, that one. Not too bad. 61, don't need to write any reasons. Yeah, this was a lot of triangles and straight lines. There was barely any circle theorems, actually, was it? Why did I divide by 2? I divided by 2 because it was an isosceles triangle. You can try and make this a bit more clear. This is a radius, this line here, and this is also a radius. So it's an isosceles. Well, you just need to know the 90 degrees bit, to be fair, but apart from that, yeah, not really. So yeah, 61. Yeah, the angle at 90 degrees. But yeah, you don't really, yeah, it's only that. It's not really that hard, is it, I guess? Well, that was quite a nice one. I guess that's why they didn't ask for any reasons either, because there weren't really any reasons, basically. There is a histogram question. I know that you've had histograms already, so my assumption, which I could be wrong, but my assumption is that you won't get histograms again. I don't know, but I'm assuming you probably won't. So the histogram gives information about the heights in meters of the trees in the park. As you can see, the histogram is incomplete. 20% of the trees in the park have a height between 10 and 12.5 meters, which is that missing bar. None of the trees in the park have a height greater than 25 meters. That's just saying that you've got everything except for this one missing piece in the middle. Complete the histogram. So we need to know what the total frequency is, basically, don't we? We need to find the total frequency. So frequency is frequency density times the class width, basically just those two axes multiplied together. So for each bar we've got, the first one, just be careful of the scale. That looks like 1.2 times 0, nope, times 2.5. Obviously these all have to come out as whole numbers, right? Because there are whole trees, so if you get one that isn't a whole number, you know something's gone wrong. Yeah, 3, that gives us a whole number, that's fine. Let me scroll this a little bit. Then we've got 2 times 2.5, so that's obviously just 5. Then we've got, what's that, 2.8 times 5? I think it's 14, but let's see. Yeah, 14. Obviously the missing one, and then last one we've got 0.8 times, that difference is from 12.5 to 25, so 12.5 again. 10. So add those together. What's that? 19, 29, 32. Now, the 32 though is not 100%, is it? That's like 80% of the frequency, isn't it? Yeah. That's 80% of the frequency. I don't think it will come up again, to be honest. I don't think it will. I mean, look, I don't actually know, so I don't want to say for sure, but I feel like they'll only ask it once, surely, because otherwise surely they want to try and test you on as much as possible, so why would they ask the same question twice? I don't think they would, but never say never, but I think it's unlikely. So I would use reverse percentages here, just divide by obviously 80 as a percentage, well, as a decimal, obviously in your calculator, which is 0.8. So 40. So there are 40 trees in total. Obviously that means that then there's 8 for this missing part. So between 10 and 12.5 we've got 8. Now the only thing we now need to do is the frequency density. So looking at our formula, if we've got the frequency, we've got the class width. Frequency density is the frequency, which is 8, divided by the class width, which is 2.5. 8 divided by 2.5. I'm just going through this quickly, as I said, because I feel like it's probably not going to come up again. So yeah, 3.2. Now I shall attempt to draw a decent bar. So 3.2. About there, isn't it? Roughly something like that. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'm just doing that briefly because I don't think it will come up again, but that was the histogram question. If anything, just keep this in mind, I guess, this formula triangle, just in case. Right, question 19 I think was quite nice. Yeah, question 19 was just basically a formula. So the diagram shows a hemisphere with diameter 8.4 centimeters. So you can see diameter, we've got the formula for the volume of the sphere. They've asked us to work out the volume of the hemisphere. So it is fairly straightforward, but also there's two things to note. One is they always give you the formula for the whole sphere, so you need to half that, or divide it by 2. 2, they quite often with Edexcel give you the diameter, especially with cones as well, because obviously all of the formulas are based in the radius, so just don't forget to not use 8.4, but to use the radius, which is 4.2. So that's just two things to bear in mind, but beyond that is just subbing it in, isn't it? So 4/3 pi times 4.2 cubed, obviously over 2 because I don't want the whole sphere, and then you just have to type it in. So 4/3 pi times 4.2 cubed over 2, and there you are, 3 significant figures, 155. Yes, exactly, half the... Do I need to remember the volume, surface area? No, you don't. As you can see, they've given it to you here. Yeah, you don't need to memorize it. If it's not a prism, which this isn't a prism, right? You don't need to memorize it. If it's a prism, you probably need to memorize it. That's kind of my thought process on that. 20 upper and lower bounds, again, something that hasn't come up yet. Hopefully that's going to come up at some point, I would imagine. So we've just been given a straightforward formula here with luckily only one thing to sub in. So C is 10.9, correct to 3 significant figures. By considering bounds, work out the value of D to a suitable degree of accuracy. So they've not even given you that much space, but it is 4 marks. So whenever it says by considering bounds, they want you to work out both upper and lower bound. So the upper bound of D, which, because this one's just cubed and then multiplied by 1/8, it correlates, doesn't it? So to find the biggest value of D, I need to find the biggest value of C. Or I need to use the biggest value of C. So the upper bound would be 10.95. Obviously cubed, don't forget the rest of the formula. So we want 1/8 times 10.95 cubed. 164.1165 ... 164.1165 ... The lower bound of D is then obviously using the smallest value of C, which is the lower bound of C, so that's 10.85 cubed. I'm just going to go back and just change that for an 8. So you see 159.6611. So you've got that. This would give you 3 marks so far. And then obviously you have to then choose one value. So you just look at both and say, what do they both round to? So as you said, yeah, 160. You have to give a reason though. So 160, I would say because, well, I don't even try because. Wherever you've rounded it to, I guess, nearest 10, technically it's rounded to 2 significant figures, isn't it? Whatever you want to call it, whatever you rounded it to. So I'll write significant figures because it kind of sounds fancier, but it is also technically to the nearest 10, isn't it? Whichever you prefer. Figures, both round to 160, or you could say both agree, or something like that. Since both the upper bound and lower bound round to 160, something like that, yeah. What's the rule for bounds like for division? Yeah, so when you've got multiply or add, which this one was that kind of scenario, upper bound and upper bound, they just all go together. Lower bound go together, don't they? When you've got divide or a subtract scenario, then you have to mix the two up. So yeah, just think about it. If let's say you were dividing, if you want to get the biggest possible answer, so the upper bound for the answer, and you're dividing something, you'd want to have the biggest possible numerator divided by the smallest possible denominator, wouldn't you? Because that would give you the biggest possible outcome. And then vice versa. If you want the smallest possible answer, you would divide the smallest possible numerator, so the smallest possible number, by the biggest possible number. That would give you the smallest answer, wouldn't it? So you can almost think of it logically as well. But yeah, normally divide and subtract is normally a mixture of the two. Adding and multiplying is normally just all upper bound or all lower bound. So yeah. So that was a fairly nice one, I think. Considering sometimes upper and lower bounds can be a lot more complicated than that, can't they? Question 21. Here is a speed time graph for a journey between 2 stations. The journey took 100 seconds, as you can see. Calculate the time taken by the train to travel half the distance between the 2 stations. Now, yeah, you had area under a graph already, so I feel like, again, would this come up? Maybe not. This is quite a niche question, isn't it? Quite a specific question. Do I think vector straight line questions will come up or the hard? I couldn't tell you. I would tell you that vectors will come up. There's probably a 99% chance. What type of vectors will come up? I don't know. So yeah, this is area under the graph, which I know you've technically already done, but we'll go through anyway. So obviously this one I'm going to split it because it's not linear. They've not told me how to split it, but it's kind of obvious, isn't it? I'm going to split it into 2 triangles and then obviously this rectangle in the middle. Because we need to know the total area in order to then find out half of the area, don't we? We don't know the total area, which represents the distance. So under the graph, we've got here for the triangle, we've got obviously half base times height, or base times height over 2. Base is 30, the height is 12. That one's 12 there, isn't it? There, 12, which gave me 180. Then the rectangle is 50 times 12. Which is 600. And then another triangle, so half of the base, which is 20, and obviously the height, all of the heights are 12 basically, aren't they? So 120. Add them up. I would just call this topic area under a graph. That's what I call it. Yeah, I'm talking for Edexcel. I know it came out for Edexcel. I don't know what came out for AQA though. Because obviously that's different, isn't it? They all put different things into their exams. So 900 meters was the whole distance between the 2 stations. Now they've said travel half of the distance. So half the distance is obviously then 450. And then you have to figure out, well, how far kind of from 0 this way is 450. Now we know that this first triangle represents 180 meters, doesn't it? So the first 30 seconds is already 180 meters. So I would take that away from your 450 just to see what's left, and it'll probably be therefore it's going to be in the rectangle, isn't it? 270. So we're looking for 270 meters into, so from 30 into the rectangle, how far in would that be? Well, we're trying to find, obviously, the x-axis of the time. We know the height is still 12, isn't it, the speed? So take your distance, divide by the speed, and it will give you the time. Divide by the speed, so 22.5 seconds. Now, that's not the final answer, though. 22.5 seconds from 30 seconds, right? We're starting at 30 seconds. We've already accounted for the 30 seconds, haven't we? So your final answer would be the 30 seconds from that triangle already, plus an extra 22.5 seconds from the rectangle, so 52.5 seconds. Where did the 180 come from? Do you see here, the triangle? I already know that that triangle is 180 meters. Because it was a triangle, I needed to do it separately to the rectangle. If it was all one big rectangle, I would have just done it straight away. But because the first bit was a triangle, and then it went into a rectangle, which is a different shape, that was the reason. If it was all one rectangle, then I wouldn't have bothered. But yeah, I had to take away the 180 meters that was already accounted for from the triangle, and then see how much further I needed to go once I hit the rectangle, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's why I did that. Just because they were different shapes. If they weren't different shapes, then I wouldn't have done that. Now, it does say compare the acceleration of the train during the first part of its journey with the acceleration of the train during the last part of its journey. So it's obviously talking... Oh, yeah, sorry, hang on, let me re-explain it. So this bit's fine, right? I'm assuming up to 450 meters is all fine. I'm assuming that bit's okay, isn't it? Up to like here. That bit's fine. So we know that half of the distance is 450 meters. Now, let me show you the diagram again. Because I've got two different shapes, and obviously if you think about the area, two different shapes is two different formulas, right? So I can't just see 450 meters straight from zero. So I said, right, okay, well I know that this first triangle represents 180 meters, so I can discount that, take that away from my 450 meters. And then whatever's left, which was the 270 meters, is now part of my rectangle, but I just need to know how far into the rectangle I went. And I guess if you think about speed, distance, time, speed is distance over time, we're trying to find out the time, aren't we? Distance divided by speed. The distance left, so from my rectangle, was 270. The speed was the height of the rectangle, wasn't it? Which was 12. So I just divided that. So it told me that the train would take 22.5 seconds to travel the other 270 meters. So there's 22.5 seconds from the 270 meters. That's when the train is going at a constant speed, like a constant, there's no acceleration, is there? And then this bit here, where there was acceleration, was the first 30 seconds anyway. So that's where the 30 and the 22.5 came from. And obviously, those two add together to make the 450 meters. I don't know if that makes sense now. Yeah? Okay, perfect. I mean, like you said, you've already had it in paper 1, so I'm hoping that they won't ask the same question again. So I wouldn't be too worried. Anyway, a kind of a weird question. They said compare the acceleration from the first part with the acceleration from the second part. So actually, let me come back. So they're talking about these two, obviously, diagonal lines, because that's acceleration, isn't it? The speed is changing. So they had a few different options. You could have said that, because they just say make a comparison kind of generally, you could have said something like you said about the gradient. You could have mentioned that obviously the acceleration is greater in the last part than it is the first part because it's steeper, the gradient's steeper. You could have said that. You could have also said that the acceleration was positive in the first part and negative in the second part, which means that obviously in the second part they were decelerating, weren't they? You could have said that also. That's kind of a completely different thing to say. You could say the gradient is steeper in the last part, or it takes longer to speed up than it does to slow down. The acceleration is increasing at the start and decreasing at the end. The acceleration is slower in the first part. You know, any of those kind of, positive and negative acceleration. You could say that the first part was positive acceleration. The second part was negative acceleration. it's kind of two different things. One, you either comment on the fact that it's positive and negative in terms of acceleration in terms of a gradient, or you point out the steepness of the gradient. So the acceleration was much faster in the second part than it was the first part. Some version of those two options, basically. Whichever you thought of first. Make a comparison of those two options, either positive and negative acceleration, that's the comparison, one's positive, one's negative, or one was much faster acceleration than the other, or much slower acceleration than the other. That's the other version. So yeah, either of those two things. It's basically making a comment on the gradients though, isn't it? Comparing the gradients. Question 22, we have iteration. So definitely paper 2 or paper 3 question this, because it's normally calculator style. Now this one actually does have a context though, so it's not as obvious that it's iteration as maybe some of them. So the number of rabbits on a farm at the end of the month N is Pn. The number of rabbits at the end of the next month is given by Pn plus 1. And that equals to 1.2 times Pn minus 50. So you're taking the original, like the previous month, timesing it by 1.2 and then taking away 50. At the end of March, there are 200 rabbits on the farm. Work out how many rabbits there will be on the farm at the end of June. So you've got March, April, May, June. So there's normally 3, isn't there? Normally you have to do it 3 times. So you can see the same here. Find April, find May, find June. That's 3 things. So P, you can call it P1, P2, P3 if you want, but I'm just going to call it maybe by the actual name of the month, just so I don't get confused. So P April would be the same as 1.2 times, obviously, March, which was 200, minus 50. I'll write down normally the first line to kind of show them that I know that I have to substitute it in, and then I won't really write it down. Yeah, you obviously have to know your months, but I would assume that at this point that's okay. 200, just put it in, whatever your starting value is, put it into a calculator, then you can type in the formula. So 1.2, where it says, in this case the Pn, or the previous answer, you put answer minus 50, not 60, 50. Now all I need to do is press equals. So for April, that's 190. For May, I'm not going to write down the whole formula again, because they can see that I know what I'm doing. I'll just write that down. For May, equals again 178. And then for June, $163.6. Now, obviously, we're talking about rabbits here. You can't have 0.6 of a rabbit, so they're happy for you to round it either up or down. It doesn't really matter. They'll accept either 163 or 164. I'd probably just round it up, I guess. Yeah. They want you to round it though, obviously, because the context is the fact that it's rabbits. Yeah, it's just substituting numbers in. That's literally all it is. It's just substituting numbers in. So that was 3 marks. And then, yeah, you do have to be really careful to make sure you've counted the months out. If you need to write them out, that's fine. I would say as a guideline, they normally make you do the process twice or 3 times. Normally 3 times, sometimes I've seen it twice, but so you can bear that in mind. Just think, okay, well, it's probably twice or 3 times. How many do I need for the months? Yep, you can say 163 or 164. They don't mind. But you do have to round it, because obviously you can't technically leave 0.6 as your answer. So you could write either 163 or 164, whichever you prefer. They don't mind. So, considering your results in part A, suggest what will happen to the number of rabbits on the farm after a long time. So have a look at the trend. Have a look. We've got 200, 190, 178, 164. Yeah, it's just that it will decrease. Like the most obvious thing you can think of. It will decrease. You don't even need full sentences. Or it will go down, or, something like that. There will be fewer rabbits. You could say that obviously after a long time there might not be any rabbits, because after a very long time it will at some point get to 0. So that's fine. Yeah, but technically I would probably have thought of it will decrease as my main answer. I think this is a fairly nice paper, to be fair. Generally, I think we've seen harder papers. I wouldn't say that it's gone extinct because technically they're only referring to the rabbits on this particular farm. Technically, if you think about, I guess we're getting really deep now, but if you think about the whole world, there are still more rabbits than just one farm. So I wouldn't say they go extinct, no. Because only the rabbits on this farm would disappear, not all of them. Is it considered much harder than AQA? I always thought AQA was harder personally, but that's just me. Yeah, it's kind of similar like biology, isn't it? The calculator, I don't know, honestly. The calculator, I found it on, like if you go on literally on YouTube and type in Casio calculator download, someone has linked it. Yeah, it was the best one I could find, to be honest. So you'll find it on YouTube if you search it for the calculator. Yeah, well, I don't know what I don't know what your school expects. My school expected me to bring my own calculator. Obviously, they tell you which one to buy. I think there's like 2 options actually. But yes, when I did it, I always had to bring my own one. Some schools might have had it in their budget to buy calculators for everyone. I don't know, but you should ask your own teacher. I mean, you've only got... Yeah, I thought everyone bought their own calculators. I know some... Because the thing is, it just depends where you are. Some schools will allocate their budget to... Because, well, especially when I went to school, the calculators were a lot cheaper now than they are now. They're quite expensive, to be honest. So, yeah, sometimes the school will buy the calculators and lend them to you. Sometimes you have to have your own calculator. It just depends on your own personal school. So you have to... I would ask your own teacher as to what they expect. Because you don't want to get there and find there's no calculator, obviously. That would be really bad. Yeah, I don't remember them ever checking if I'd saved anything in my calculator, honestly. So how would they check like 200 students? Edexcel grey boundaries are much better than AQA. Oh, okay. I thought AQA was harder just because I found that the way they word the questions I think is more confusing, but that's just me because I wasn't used to AQA because I did Edexcel, but oh yeah, you might want to bring your own one. Oh, you got a supply teacher. Do you have a head of maths or something? Someone that higher up that you can ask? Just checking the comments before we move on. Yeah, you say that it's only in 2 days though. If you can buy one, I would go buy one. If you can't, I would recommend, I don't know if you have older siblings or younger siblings or someone like older friends or someone who has a calculator that they're not going to be obviously in the exam as well. If you know someone who has the calculator, then just borrow theirs. You don't have to necessarily buy one. Yeah, I don't know how you cheat because how would you know what's on the what's on the paper anyway? Well, some people, I don't know, find it, but okay, right. Yeah, obviously once you walk into the exam, you can't walk out again, so make sure that you've got everything with you. If you can buy one, I would probably recommend that. So, question 23, the diagram shows a parallelogram. As you can see here, the area of the parallelogram is greater than 15 centimeters squared, and they've said show that we can get this equation. So how can we get this equation? Well, they're talking about the area, so we might as well find the area of the parallelogram. Now, the area of a parallelogram is kind of the same as a rectangle, but obviously we're not going to use the slant side. You have to use the perpendicular height. Perpendicular height there. So that's why they've given us this kind of angle, haven't they, as well? That's why they've added that in. No, yeah, the exam is in 2 days. Well, I guess less than 2 days now. So this is obviously 150, right? But technically this side, I don't want to write over it, but that side's 90, isn't it? So if you did 150 minus 90, then I think you should get 60 for this side. So then you could do trig if you wanted to. I think you could probably use... I think there's different ways of doing it. Method to find... Yeah, you could even maybe split it diagonally and do two triangles because the triangles would be the same. I guess you could do that if you wanted to. I guess it depends. You don't get the equation for a parallelogram, no, because it is technically the same as a rectangle. It's just the base times the height, but the height has to be the perpendicular height, right? That's the only thing to remember. That would be the formula for a trapezium. How do I know it's 60? Because if I've drawn a perpendicular height, then the perpendicular height's at 90. So if you see how I've tried to draw it, I didn't want to scribble over the 150. But technically, if this side is 90, then the other side is 60. That's where I got the 60 from. You could do it that way. As I said, if you want to use sine rule, you can cut it in half. That might make more sense. It depends what makes sense to you, I guess. I mean, yeah. I guess sine 60, well, sine 60 gives you root 3 over 2, so that might be inconvenient, mightn't it? Yeah, it's just base times height, yeah, but the height is the vertical one. Well, I was thinking because sine, 60 there, and then what would we have? We'd have the hypotenuse, and I want to find, that's the adjacent. Oh, so we'd have cos, hoping cos 60 is a nice number. Yeah, cos 60 is the half, okay. I'd probably do it this way, you might do it the other way, that's fine. You might use sine rule. Or when I say sine rule, I mean area of a triangle using half AB sine C. You could do that as well, because we were obviously on question 23. I don't know why, I just thought to do it this way. So we would have to do, if we're doing it my way, we'd do this. We want to find the adjacent, because I want to find the height. So that's cos 60, which is luckily a half, times by the hypotenuse, which obviously you'd have to write as 10 minus x. So that's basically a half, 10 minus x. Now that's the height, right? But then I would times that to find the area. Would be just multiplied by the base or the top one. And then that, the area they've said is greater than 15. So you see how I can set up an inequality? What happens if you miss a paper? Well, I'd imagine you just get 0, yeah. You shouldn't, obviously. I don't know. I don't know, actually. I'd imagine they just give you 0, because otherwise, surely if you got a really good mock result, everyone would just not turn up for their actual things, wouldn't they? They'd be like, oh, it's fine, I'll just take my mock result. So I wouldn't, you don't miss a paper, please. And then I would just rearrange this. I'd probably times by 2 to get rid of the half. There's not a lot of space here, is there? So that would be 30. And then I would expand this. So what's that? 20x minus 10 minus 2x squared, running out of space. Let me move this over. Plus x 30, and then just rearrange it to what they've got. Now they've got a positive 2x, so I'm going to move everything to that side to make it positive. So that would leave me with 0. Add 2x squared. That makes 21, so minus 21x. Add 10 to 30 is 14. You see how I get the same thing? I know mine's left and right the other way around. It doesn't really matter. Yeah, I feel like that should be more than 3 marks. Especially if you've also done the trigonometric area of a triangle, which you could have done as well. That was another option. So yeah. Now part B is then solving it, basically. Find the range of possible values of x, so solve it. So we're going to factorize this. Obviously 2x. You could also use quadratic formula if you want to. I'm just going to make it equal to 0 for now, and I'll bring back the inequality at the end. So it's times to make a positive, adding to make a negative, so 2 negatives. Then we want factors of 40 that would make 21, 8 and 5, because that would make minus 16 minus 5 is minus 21, yeah. So x is either 5 over 2 or 8. Now obviously I'll put the inequalities back in, right? So that just depends which way round the symbol is facing. If it's facing the 0, it means you should have a range. So 5 over 2 is 2.5, isn't it? So x is between those two. Now, what I would maybe just check to see if both of those are valid. 10 minus 2.5 would be 7.5. That's still fine. That's still positive. 5 minus 1. Yeah, all of them. I would sub them back in my head just to make sure that they are still positive, because obviously you need to have positive side lengths. this one is fine. Both of those are fine, so that would be my final answer. Let me just check the comments. We've got one more maybe. Oh no, that's such bad timing for the English exam then. I mean, obviously you have to do it, unfortunately, but yeah, that's really bad timing on their part. Surely they should, when they're doing their timetables, like check out if it clashes with any kind of, you know, religious celebrations and things, because yeah, that's really tough. Oh, we've got two more, I think. Okay, question 24. Have a look. Yep, square ABCD is transformed by a combined transformation of a reflection in the line x equals -1 and then followed by a rotation. It happened with A levels. That's even worse. A levels is even worse, honestly. So what I would do is I'd probably mark out that reflection, because you might as well do that. X is -1 is here. That's where x is -1. So then if I were to draw my square, 1, 2, 2 away, isn't it? So let me get an actual square, because that's going to take too long otherwise. Square is here, isn't it? So that's that. And then they've said after it hits this point here, so if I label the corners, that's still A, that's D, C, and B. Then they rotate it. So under the combined transformation, two vertices of the square ABCD are invariant. So I think we saw this yesterday, actually. They don't change, they don't move. Describe fully one possible rotation. So how could I rotate this square to get it back and where it kind of almost overlaps with some of the original points? They did have 4 possible ways to write it. The one that I was thinking was, I mean, obviously it's a rotation, so you have to write rotation, but rotation 90 degrees. What was I thinking? Clockwise. And you have to obviously put the center of rotation, which was -1, 0. That's the one that I thought of. There are 3 other ones that you could do. Yep, transformation has already come up, so hopefully this won't come up again. Yeah, invariant is the point on the original square, as in it doesn't change, it doesn't move. Oh, you got none tomorrow, but one on Friday. Yeah, that's really annoying. I don't think it means lower grade boundaries, although that would be nice. Is it not -3, 2? -3, 2 is not one of the options, no. You can't put the center as the corner of the square, because let's say, imagine if your center, if you put it here, imagine using your tracing paper, it would only rotate to like maybe here or here or here, right? Then it's not touching this one, is it? It has to, when they say rotating, they want it to touch this one again, if that makes sense. That was one of the options. You could have, I'll write down the list here, 90 degrees anti-clockwise, but then you would have had to put that the center was -1, 6. You could have had 180, obviously you don't need to say clockwise or anti-clockwise because it's the same thing. -1, 2. You could have had 180, -1, 4. Those are your 4 options. One of those you need to say. But as I said, we've already had rotation, so I think the chances of you getting it again is very low, so I wouldn't really be too worried about that. Yeah, you could test it with tracing paper. That's what I'd recommend. Get some tracing paper from the invigilators or whoever and test it out until you find where it does overlap again. Yes, exactly. When you rotate it, 2 points of the second square should then come back and touch 2 points of the original square. Okay, let's do our last question. This one was actually not, it's 5 marks, but it's not too bad if you can kind of get your head around it, I guess. So we've got the straight line L has equation 3x plus 2y equals 17. The point A has coordinates 0, 2. The straight line M is perpendicular to L and passes through A. So that bit, first of all, so far great, because perpendicular line's really easy. Then we've got that line L crosses the y-axis at the point B, and lines L and M intersect at point C. We need to work out the area of triangle ABC. I've gone through that really quickly because I'm gonna draw kind of. You can sketch it if you want. Sometimes I find that easier. Just draw some axes roughly. So point A is 0, 2. So let's say here. That's on the y-axis, isn't it? What I would probably do is work out the equation for line M, which is the perpendicular one. So I need to know the gradient of line L, don't I? So let's rearrange it. So it has to be in mx equals c, y is the subject, so minus 3x plus 17. Then divide everything by 2. So my gradient for line L, this is line L, isn't it? I've just rearranged it, is 3 over 2. They said where line L crosses the y-axis is point B, so that's technically this point here, isn't it, which is about 8.5. So that's there. So the gradient of line L is minus 3 over 2, so therefore the gradient of the perpendicular line M, you can label it however you want, I'm just using L and M because they've said that, is therefore positive 2/3. So I know that line L is going down, you know, roughly, something like that. That's line L, isn't it, roughly? Line L. Line M is then obviously going upwards, isn't it, perpendicular. So y equals 2/3 x. Now, technically you can sub in the coordinates 0, 2, but you don't have to, because 0, 2 is already on the y-axis, so it is just plus 2, isn't it? So I would even just skip straight past that. So that's my line M. Now, that one is perpendicular, but goes through A, so when I was drawing it, oh no, I'm trying to move it, but it's moving my page. Obviously make sure that that goes through. Something like that, isn't it? And they've said where L and M intersect is point C, so this is point C here. This is the area that we want, right? So that's why I just draw it. So I know that this number here is 2. I know that this one is 8.5 because that's 17 over 2, isn't it? So I know, if you think about your triangle, the base of the triangle is 6.5. I just now need to know the perpendicular height, which would be, my pen gone, like this bit here, wouldn't it? So I want to know coordinates of C, is what I mean. So to find where they intersect is where they're both the same. So I'm going to put both L and M equal to each other because they're both equal to y, right? So negative 3 over 2x plus 17 over 2. You can obviously put decimals if you want, but I just leave it as fractions, is equal to 2/3 x plus 2, where they intersect, obviously. So I just solved this. So I added the negative one, so that was 2/3 x plus 1.5, which is the same as 3 over 2. Gives you an annoying number, so I just left it as a fraction for now. So that's 13 over 6x, which does seem wrong, I know, but it's fine. Then I took 17 over 2, which is 8.5 minus 2, 13 over 2, or you could put it as 6.5, obviously. And then I just divided, right, to get x. So this one divided by 13 over 6 is 3, so you do get a decent number. So if the x coordinate of that point is 3, I can then sub it back into one of the equations to find the y coordinate. It's just simultaneous equations, basically. So sub it into one of the two equations, L or M, it doesn't matter which. So 2/3 times 3 is obviously 2, plus the other 2 is 4. So C, the coordinates of C is 3, 4. Yep, simultaneous equations, yeah. It basically is simultaneous equations, yeah. Just checking the comments before I carry on. Yeah, you do need to... The only reason why I figured it out is because I drew it and I could visualize it. So I just sketched it, basically. And it's just straight line graphs. It's everything you need to know about straight line graphs in one question, basically. So if this is 3, 4, Then obviously the height is 4, but I don't really care about the height. What I care about is the fact that that distance there from obviously 0 is 3. So do you see how now I have my, I would say this is called straight line graphs. Do you see how now my triangle, if I draw it this way round, the base is 6.5, the height is 3. So now I just need to work out the area of the triangle. That bit's easy. The area of the triangle bit's easy. It's just figuring out the coordinates in the first place, isn't it? So the area of a triangle is half base, which was 6.5, times the height, which is 3, or you could do base times height over 2, doesn't really matter. So 0.5 times the base, which was 6.5, times the height, which was 3. 9.75, as you said. There's no units because it's obviously just coordinates. So there's your answer for that one. Let me just check the comments. Yeah, normally when it's a graph one, maybe if it's a circle graph at the end or some kind of coordinates, I tend to try and sketch it. Like, it doesn't have to be to scale, but as long as you've obviously got positive coordinates in the positive area, then that's fine. I just roughly sketch it, just to give myself an idea of actually what's going on, because obviously all the words is so much to take in. So I just like to place it in my head. You don't have to, but I would the side not be 10.5? It's not plus. Oh yeah, that's the question, right? Because I'm not including this bit here. That's 2, isn't it, there, from 0 to 2? But that's, do you see how that's not in the triangle? The triangle technically starts at 2 and goes up to 8.5. So the difference is 6.5. Wait, after the gradient, did you make a right angle triangle or something? No, I didn't make it. That's just how it, yeah, well, I guess it makes a right angle triangle, doesn't it? This is a right angle technically, but I didn't use that because then I'd have to find diagonal sides and I didn't bother that. Yeah, that's the only reason why, because the first 2 bits weren't counted. Just check if there's any other questions. There's your 2 kind of measurements there, 6.5 by 3. Let's see. Which steps give you marks? Okay. Mark 1. Let me get my red pen. Mark 1 is for the process to find the gradient of L. So this, or this bit here, is Mark 1, that one. Mark 2, for process to find the gradient of the perpendicular line. So as long as you've written 2/3 somewhere, that's Mark 2. Well, not even there because you don't need the +2. This bit here is Mark 2. So for the 2 gradients, you get 2 marks. Mark 3 gives the y coordinate of B as 8.5. So this bit here. Or if you've, I guess they would mark a diagram if you drew a diagram as well. Mark 4, for process to find the x coordinate of C or the y coordinate. For the first stage of this, so this stage here, for the first bit, not that you've actually found the coordinate, but for the process to find it. And then for some reason, they then just skip straight to the final answer. So yeah, basically all your marks are in the first bit here. Yeah. That's the steps that give you marks. I'm confused. Why is M 2/3? Because the other line was -3/2, wasn't it? And then how are perpendicular lines related? Perpendicular lines, the gradient is the negative reciprocal. So do you see how this one was negative? So now my second one is positive, and this one was 3/2, so my second one was 2/3. It's like the negative reciprocal. Yeah. Yeah, it's quite a lot to go through. There's a lot of moving pieces, but again, this is the final question. Yeah, definitely you should get the first few marks because, as I said, it's kind of jumped from this mark all the way to the end. So hopefully you get the first few marks. What if the line was parallel? Then you would have the same gradient. So you would just take the -3/2 and you would take that. But normally for higher tier, they tend to do perpendicular lines because obviously it's technically harder, isn't it? What am I going to be doing tomorrow's live? I'm kind of debating it for tomorrow's live because I don't have as much time, unfortunately. I was thinking to do kind of last minute revision of a few different topics, like probably less than an hour. Because if I did a past paper, what time would I need to start? 6, 4. I don't know. I'm planning to do last minute revision, to be honest, rather than a past paper. Yeah, speedrun a past paper. That's why I don't know if you prefer a past paper. I do have a video on quadratic simultaneous equations, like an actual video, not a live video, but I have an actual video if you want to look, if you have a look on my channel, under simultaneous equations. One of them is for quadratic ones, if you would like. Vectors in an equation of a circle. I might put a poll up just to see. I might put a poll up overnight. If anything, the earliest would be kind of 4 o'clock, I guess, 4:30. So we'll see. I'll put a poll up and you can decide whether you want a past paper or whether you just want like a quick bit of last minute revision. And then you guys go and vote on that. I'll do that like after this live finishes. You can go vote on that and then I'll decide tomorrow. Or later on. Yeah. Yeah, that's probably what I'll do. Okay. If we do end up doing a past paper, if you want to know what it is before, if we do end up doing one, it will obviously be this one, but paper 3, because I'm going like in order. So it'll be, the November, what was this? November 2019 paper 3. If we do a past paper, if not, then it will just be kind of last minute revision topics. Yeah, I know, it's mostly you guys. Well, if I was doing last minute revision, I would have kind of a few different questions or a few different topics that I think are most likely going to come up. Obviously, I don't know, but most likely. I'll go through those. If we do have time at the end, I could ask a few questions. It depends because I have to finish before 6, basically. So yeah. Yeah, for last 4 questions are different papers. The foundation, there won't be another foundation one until after, probably Thursday, because I did one today. It was earlier on at 5. Normally the foundations are at 5 o'clock, but I can't do one tomorrow just for time. Okay, I'll put a poll up and I'll just see what everyone replies to, alright? Obviously it'll be focused on higher tier either way. But yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, vectors, I have got videos on vectors, so you can have a look at those if you want over between now and tomorrow. Perfect. Alright, well, yeah, I'll leave this here. I've done my predicted paper for the higher tier, uploaded this morning if you want to have a look at that as a video. It does also have the Google Docs PDF like link if you want to download the paper. You can also do that for yourselves as well. You can have a look through that. But yeah, otherwise, we'll see what we'll do tomorrow. I'll put a poll up and we'll decide for tomorrow, okay? So thanks for joining me, guys, and I'll just leave it there.